Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a special video update, company update from Sitka Gold. I am chatting with Mike Burke, Director and Vice President of Corporate Development. Sitka is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol SIG, on the OTCQB under the symbol SITKF, and the Frankfurt Exchange 1RF. Mike, thanks for joining me today, and thank you for putting together a number of slides and images to walk us through the company's 30,000 meter drill program at the RC Gold project in the Yukon. This is the largest, most significant drill program that the company has undertaken on this asset. I understand it's going to be spread out on a number of different targets. So, Mike, let's just first talk about the overall strategy of this drill program. As I said, the largest that the company has ever undertaken. What are the overall goals here?
Yeah, Sitka Gold's been like the Energizer Bunny. We started drilling back here in 2019 and been consistently drilling every year. Got about 27,000 meters of drilling into this project where we've made 2 deposit discoveries. And now we've gotten recognition in the market. We've just put out a new updated resource. So we're up in the over a couple million ounces in these deposits. So certainly we're getting the attention we need. And the focus of this project or this program is to continue to define the 2 deposits that we've discovered, the Blackjack and the Eiger. We've focused on the Blackjack. It's the higher grade of the two resources. It's around a gram per ton. And so we're going to continue expanding and defining the limits of the Blackjack. But now with this, $15 million in the bank and a 30,000 meter drill program planned, we can move out back to the Eiger deposit that was discovered back in 2020. We can continue to expand that using the knowledge that we have from our drilling at Blackjack. Saddle zone is midway between Blackjack and Eiger. It's within the conceptual pit, like these are pit constrained resources. So the saddle zone is within the pit constrained resource at Blackjack. So going back into the saddle and drilling off, following up on drill holes there, such as 80 meters or 1.21 grams, that's considered waste right now. So obviously we want to convert those numbers into a resource as well. So there's a bunch of infill drilling to fill in gaps in the Blackjack where we're in that pit limit, as well as define the overall limits of that deposit. We also had that big, long drill hit last year that intersected Blackjack mineralization to depth down over 600 meters. Want to follow up on that, test the underground potential of the Blackjack, and then move on to new targets. We drilled the Rhosgobel and the Pukelman intrusions last year, first diamond drill holes in both of those zones. They both returned better than 100 gram meter intersections. So those are 2 brand new discoveries. And again, with this allocation of 30,000 meters, we're able to do significant initial drill programs on those that hopefully lead to, initial resources on those 2 deposits or potential deposits. Optimistic geologist getting ahead of myself there, right? So
Hey, most of you geologists are pretty
yeah, we
optimistic. You
better
need to
be.
be in the exploration game.
Yeah, so it's an interesting program. The more I think about it, we have these more advanced deposits, the Blackjack being the most advanced, Eiger, which hasn't seen drilling since 2021 when it was initially defined, and 2 new discoveries. So we're pretty scattered out along that Lassonde curve. We're pushing the Blackjack to getting to the point where we can start doing some economic studies on that down the road, likely after this year's drilling. But then we have these other areas that are close by, all within 5 kilometers, that are new discoveries, and figuring out the potential on those. And with the size of this program, we'll have a very good idea of that this year. And we're financed, so we're good to go. We're starting now. We're doing a winter drilling program, and we'll continue that and carry on drilling in the summer. And it's going to be a big year for us.
Okay, now one point you touched on there that we should just cover before we get into these maps is the financing aspect. What is the general budget for this 30,000 meter program?
Yeah, it'd be, our drill costs. We're road accessible, not far out of Dawson City, so it's a 2-hour drive into the property. So our drilling costs are around $300 a meter. So if you're looking at that 30,000 meters, we're, around $10 million. So we've got a little extra in the kitty to, adjust and do some other things, but yeah, that's $10 million should get us through this 30,000 meters and give us the flexibility to do a few other things as well.
Okay, Mike, let's pull up some of these slides then. Let's look a bit closer at the project and especially some of these targets. First and foremost, we should see a disclaimer here for the company that really just the standard disclaimer, maybe some forward-looking statements that we will be making. But when it comes to the project, let's look at the project first and foremost, especially I guess company-wide, your portfolio of projects.
Yeah, exactly. There's the old forward-looking statement because you're talking to an optimistic geologist. But yeah, we always like pointing out that our RC Gold is our flagship property. It's in the Yukon. Made a great discovery up there in the Tombstone Gold Belt that has produced other great discoveries lately, and including our friends over at Snowline. And so that's where we're focused. But we do have other projects that we've been doing smaller programs over the years and advancing. They're great projects in great jurisdictions. There's the Alpha Gold project in Nevada. It's in the Cortez Hills Trend. It's only 40 kilometers south of the Cortez Hills deposit. So great territory there. And we've successfully intersected Carlin type mineralization, intersections up of 10 meters of 1.21 grams per ton. So got some interesting work to follow up on there. Burrow Creek in Arizona. That's an epithermal gold silver system, sticks right out of the ground, nearly went back in production back in the 80s. It has a historical resource on it. That's a project we've been waiting for some drill permits, received those last year. It's on private ground, but the drill permits pertain to the Bureau of Land Management ground that lies to the south that the vein extends on. So that's ready to go for additional drilling, as well as the Coppermine River project, sediment-hosted copper up in Nunavut. It's not very far off the coast. It's only 40 kilometers out of Kaglucktuk that's on tidewater. New sediment-hosted discovery, sediment-hosted copper, silver deposits can be huge, as we know, the ones in Africa. So a lot more interest starting to be up in this area of Nunavut, and as well, that project's permitted for drilling. So we've got, when it rains, it pours. We have a lot of other projects that don't necessarily get the attention they should, but they're great projects in our pipeline here. But again, as I mentioned, we're having such good success at RC Gold. That's where our focus is.
So, Mike, just a quick question. Any strategy for any of these other projects? Would you look for a partner to potentially drill them, or are there any major holding costs we need to know of, or can you just more or less ride these along with the
Yeah,
RC project?
Yeah, great question. Actually, the nice thing is they're very low holding costs. They're all 100% owned by Sitka. We have no work commitments, so the holding costs are low. But we're always looking at ways to, gain shareholder value out of these, whether it's an option agreement with somebody else, getting in there, doing a bit more work ourselves. Like this Nunavut project's never been drilled. So a small program up there could lead to a lot of shareholder value. So that's something we'd consider doing ourselves. But our other ones, we're open to partnerships or, look at ways maybe spinning out a company. Who knows? There's many ways of monetizing these for our shareholders, and we're always thinking about that and deciding what to do.
Okay. Hey, let's get into some of these targets then. Let's look at what the catalysts are in terms of the drill program this year.
Yeah, so you can see this is a map that covers the core of the Clear Creek intrusive complex. Our property, I've got another map that shows the entire extent of the property, but we're homed in here. This is the Blackjack deposit up in the northern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex. In the background here is soil geochemistry, so it kind of blurs a bit of the geology, but all these areas are hosted in Tombstone Suite intrusive stocks. and there's the saddle stock that lies underneath the Blackjack. Underneath, we call it the saddle target area because it's a flat area up on top of the zone here. There's a big intrusive dike and sill system that sits midway between the saddle stock and the Eiger stock. And then just over here is the Josephine stock. We drilled a couple holes there a couple years ago, hit some interesting mineralization. Then as we move south, the Pukelman stock sits just in here midway between Saddle and the Rhosgobel. Rhosgobel is the furthest south stock, largest stock. And so those are the kind of main areas where we're looking at drilling in this northern part to continue expanding the Blackjack, define the limits of that. We haven't defined the limits of it. It's open in all directions, including, as I mentioned, at depth. There's definitely underground potential there. Um, the conceptual pit encompasses the saddle zone target area. And as I mentioned, we had drill hits there previously, 80 meters of 1.21 grams per ton gold. So definitely want to convert that into a resource because, that's definitely not waste. The Eiger deposit, we haven't had a chance to get back in there. We focused on the Blackjack, but with the 30,000 meter program and being fully financed, we're looking forward to getting back using some of the knowledge. Every drill hole you drill on a project, you learn a little bit more. So we have a lot better ideas of controls of mineralization that'll help us expand this Eiger deposit within the Eiger stock. As I mentioned, the Josephine lies a little further to the east. No firm plans on drilling that, but we may get over there. We'll see how the season goes and do some follow-up on our earlier drilling. So this northern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex, we've got 15,000 meters of drilling planned for here.
So that's
So
half
then
the
we
program. Half the program is
half
focused
the
up
program.
there expanding the resources.
You bet. You bet.
Okay.
And
Is there any upgrading that could be done? Because as we see at the Blackjack, there is still over 1 million ounces in inferred. How much of that will be a priority to convert?
yeah, as we drill into the deeper down, we're going to be, cutting up near the top, and we'll be converting some of those ounces into from inferred up into indicated. That's what happened the last time. So definitely we'll be doing some of that. That'll be part of that 15,000 meters. But certainly, a lot is still going to be looking at that inferred where you're stepping out at kind of 100-meter spacing to really define the limits of this thing before you start totally focusing on filling it in. So we've got both aspects of that drilling work to do.
Okay. And it will be these approximate 100-meter step outs around Blackjack in all directions, or will it be focused in a more couple
It's
directions?
Yeah, in the south, it's definitely open, so we'll do larger step outs there. Up to the north, maybe a little bit tighter, and to the east, as we move into the saddle zone that's included within that conceptual pit, we'll probably tighten it up a bit in there. So we've got a pretty nice, concise drill program figured out to do those bigger step outs, but then we'll maybe fill some gaps in too.
Okay.
And there's even a few gaps within the deposit. When you're modeling it up, you find holes in it where a drill hole wasn't closest to the next one. So there's a few holes that we'll have to do to fill in different areas as well.
Okay. Let's move down south then to the Rhosgobel. I want to talk about that. That's more or less right in the middle of the screen down in the south. You
Yeah.
did some drilling there last year. You hit some decent results. What's the follow-up work going to be at the Rhosgobel area?
Yeah, really decent results. You can see them here, that 119 meters of 1.05 grams per ton. So definitely, and there was two holes drilled there, hole 1 and 2, both hit great mineralization. So there, 100-meter step outs, to move out from these initial drill discovery, these two discovery holes, and hopefully start outlining an initial resource there. So, this area had that drilling back in 1995 by Kennecott, very shallow drilling, reverse circulation drilling that outlined this east-west extensional zone. Plenty of smaller 1 gram hits in there. We stepped out under the best two holes, and we'll just be following up on that. The mineralization before was drilled to a maximum of about 60 meters depth. We drilled to about 300 meters, so we're just gonna use that diamond drill. Does a much better job, in our opinion. Lets you have a good look at the rock, understand your mineralization better, and we'll just keep stepping out to hopefully, as I said, define an initial resource down here on the Rhosgobel. And you can see too, there's these extensional zones that define and help concentrate the mineralization in these intrusions. And Big Creek Stock is just a small step out away. Sitka Gold drilled a hole there in 2019, I would believe. It was just outside of the stock, hit some interesting mineralization, never got back in there. So there's drill targets at Big Creek, and you can see, they're part of that same kind of extensional system. So we've got the targets that we're going to focus in with this drilling that we've allocated. But we definitely might be able to step out and check out a few other things that are drill ready targets.
Any other information you want to give us on that bear paw breccia or Barney stock? We haven't really talked about any of these in past interviews.
Yeah, no, not at all. The bear paw breccia that was discovered back in the mid 1990s by Red Star Resources. I got to go up there for the discovery drill hole. I was working for the Yukon Geological Survey at the time. So they were drilling in late October. I remember it was a dark and snowy day that they invited me up. But really interesting. It's a at surface discovery. It's a quartz breccia with fragments of the intrusive rock as well as the surrounding metasediments. You can see the soil geochem at surface. It's had a little bit of drilling, not a ton, but some great results. You can see 46 meters at better than a gram, 50 meters at better than 2 grams. So there's some follow-up drilling to do there as well. And again, we do have a drill plan for that, whether we get there this year and step out, or whether the drilling that we're doing on Rhosgobel, Pukelman, and up here in the north, whether that just consumes us and we don't get a chance to step out to these other areas. Well, we'll see what happens. And
Okay.
then Barney Creek as well. You can see the geochem just off the nose there. Some great targets in there for drilling. And then, the soil geochem, a lot of this area, it looks sparse in the soil geochem, but that's also a function of the amount of soil geochem that's done. A lot of times people look at a map and go, oh, this area looks no good. Well, it's not that it's no good, it might be a lack of data. So you always got to be very careful when you're looking at company information. It's obvious this area produced some great soil geochem. And then, of course, that's where you go back to next to expand the soil geochem program. So there's additional baseline work. This is a huge property, but there's other areas that need that baseline, additional soil geochem as other types of groundwork. But you can see here, our drill targets are pretty small within the confines of this large soil geochem. So you can see there's definitely other areas there that again will progress with our prospecting, additional geochem mapping, some geophysics perhaps. And I'm certain that we'll come up with additional drill targets right up in this northern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex.
Okay. No, it sounds like some of that more early stage exploration down in the southern portion of this map that would happen later. So let's focus on the near term drilling then, the larger portion of this 30,000 meters, that 15,000 meters around Blackjack and Eiger and even potentially the saddle zone. Can you share with us the next slide, that long section here, so we can see what work has been done and maybe a little further explanation of where the work will follow up?
Yeah, so you can see here's that conceptual pit on the Blackjack deposit, and that's the 0.3 gram per ton cutoff that's contained within that conceptual pit on the indicated and inferred resource. You can see the drilling, really focused. We've hit down at depth as well as this deposit is plunging to the south here. So we'll continue drilling up in this area and chasing it down dip a little bit. This is where those saddle hits were. So that's right in the core of this pit. So there's some hits. They're a little hard to see in there, but you can see the purple and the red right near surface. So that's going to convert some mineralization into the resource, and then keep poking around in here because there's other sills and dikes of intrusions that we've hit scattered hits, and they're mineralized. So a lot of work to convert that mineralization into a resource base all around this deposit and in that saddle. And then, as I mentioned, the Eiger, you can see its conceptual pit here, a little shallower. We haven't drilled it to depth as much as this, so there's a lot of potential down at depth at the Eiger, as well as we really haven't fully defined it in any direction to the east and the west and north. It's wide open.
Now, just
So
about Blackjack and Eiger here. Blackjack's the higher grade deposit. It's also
yeah,
larger, as we see. So, when it comes to Eiger, some of the drilling you're going to do there, what would move the needle, I would assume, would be higher grade. So, would that be the focus at Eiger, or could you simply add more ounces at a lower grade? Would that even move the needle that much for you?
yeah, I mean, certainly, this blackjack deposit is a real cornerstone to this property. Having a higher grade deposit, economics will hopefully prove that out, that you get a quicker payback. So all of a sudden, other areas with lower grade resources are, they're just kind of gravy. But certainly we have got our ideas at Eiger on controls of mineralization and where we might vector into higher grades. So we love the blackjack. We love the higher grades that we're seeing there. So that's certainly something we're going to focus in on Eiger, applying some of the knowledge that we have here and seeing if that works at Eiger, and we can start defining some higher grade portions and bring the grade up, because it's the more typical half-gram per ton grade that we see in other deposits within the Tombstone Belt, be it around Banyan or the Eagle deposit or Fort Knox over in Alaska. So definitely, you're right there, Corey. We really want to focus in on the grades. Pretty important. High grade is something that everybody loves in this business. It just makes a lot of sense. So yeah, applying that knowledge from here to not only expand it, but also focus in on potentially higher grade portions of this deposit is something we'll be doing.
Okay. Now, how deep will you be going with some of these holes at Blackjack and at Eiger?
Yeah, well, Blackjack, we've drilled down. These are about 700 meters. And so that's definitely down below the limits of an open pit. We're getting into the underground world. So we're looking at techniques there. You can do, it's called wedging, where you have it's called a mother hole. So a hole that, say this one hole, 68. You just go back down it and, a couple hundred meters up the hole, you put a wedge down there, and then you're drilling a couple hundred meters and it just deviates off that hole. So we would be looking at some wedging to drill the deeper parts of this deposit to see how it extends and how big it is down at depth. So, those holes, once you've wedged down, we can probably drill, well, as far as the drillers are going to be able to go with the rig we have. And that's, they've drilled over 1,000 meters with this rig. So we hope we can follow up with similar kind of length holes. And yeah, they've had, it's really good drilling up here. The drilling's pretty good. The rock's pretty solid. So that's a big factor in it too. You're drilling deep holes like that, if you have bad ground, it's not a lot of fun. But here we've got really good holes, so we're looking forward to that. Same thing with Eiger. We'd be looking at drilling probably the same kind of depths that we've done at Blackjack. We want to see. We think there's maybe a depth control, so we're anticipating maybe combined with some of the structures that we've mapped out, that there's a higher grade potential resource to the existing resource at Eiger. So we'll be looking at that.
All right, let's talk Pukelman and Rhosgobel. Look, it's so early on at these areas. Just a couple holes, as we even see in the Rhosgobel area. Just those two holes. I'm sure everybody would like to know just how big this could be, but I think that's impossible to answer this early on. So, can you at least compare these early on results to what you were seeing at Blackjack early on? Give us a bigger picture of these two targets.
Yeah, certainly, Blackjack, the discovery drill hole was that 220 meters at 1.21 grams per ton. This discovery hole was 100 meters at over a gram, so not quite the same as that, but it was a longer hole there. But certainly consistent mineralization as we're seeing here. And these are those old Kennecott holes. They look like they're floating in the air, but this background, this is topography, this gray. So we haven't mapped in or shown the intrusion here, but the intrusion covers a big area in here. We can see that mineralization extends to depth. We'll just be, like I say, stepping out very methodically here within the intrusion. Our diamond drilling we do is oriented drill core, so we see the veins, we know the orientation. So following up on these two holes and stepping out is a fairly straightforward task. But it's a pretty large zone here, nice flat area. So Rhosgobel has a lot of potential to build a resource number fairly quickly. And then over here on Pukelman, if you want to jump over there, this doesn't show the geology. Again, this is topography, but the contact, so the intrusion at Pukelman is within these two diamond drill holes, and that the contact of that intrusion just sits here. So this is called the contact zone. The Golden Predator drilled a lot of holes back in 2011 and 2012. So this is within the metasediments. There's a large intrusive dike that cuts through here as well that connects up somewhere with this Pukelman stock. And so they hit a lot of great results there. We're hoping to look at joining these two areas up, the controls on the mineralization, why we're seeing such good mineralization in the metasediments, as well as following up on this two holes in the Pukelman, because we drilled off existing roads. We didn't drill in the guts of the soil geochem. So there's some, we think a better zone is just over the side of the hill here to the east as we're looking to the east. So as we step over there, we hope to hit better mineralization within that intrusion itself, because that's where we've hit the best mineralization at Blackjack, Eiger, Rhosgobel, and Pukelman has been within that intrusion. But this contact zone's a bit of an anomaly. It certainly has some great drill intersections within the metasediments themselves.
Okay. Mike, takes us through the drilling for this year, but I do want to ask about the larger project here. We've just been focusing on a portion of this project. Here you go. This is a great map where look at the eastern side of this project. There seem to be a lot of stars that I'm seeing here. So any work that's going on the other part of the project?
Yeah, we're always doing work over here. Last year, that was in our year-end press release, I believe. We talked about some of the work that we did up in this northern part, the Matin. This is the Sprague Creek stock. It's a gold-bearing tombstone sweet intrusion as well. There's a nice skarn mineralization on the north. There's some good soil geochem up here. So there's a small sheeted vein zone in here. But we had great success at this May Q. This is called the Boz stock. And there was a sheeted vein array noted by Bernie Kreft, the prospector that did the original work back in here. Found a zone. We went back in there this year, did some additional soil geochem as well as prospecting and mapping, and expanded that zone quite a bit. So we've hit some nice mineralization at surface, classic sheeted zone array like we're seeing over here. So there's a drill target at the May Q as well. The road goes here. It's about, I think it's about 12 kilometers away. So this would be a helicopter program. No plans on drilling that right now, but this is a great project itself. Other people would be envious to have this just on its own. And then these stars, this is an area that has had substantially less work, but it's had soil geochem all along these ridge lines. So ridge and spur soil sampling. So these stars identify areas where we've seen gold, bismuth, tellurium response in the soils, as well as there's some geophysical response. And we've done LiDAR surveys. That's shows up structures and different things. So we think there's potential here by looking at all those different geology deals and putting them together. We think there's potential for a buried intrusion in here. We think there's pretty strong indications. So this is much more of a grassrootsy play, but certainly something that's very interesting just because of the abundance of different kind of little sniffs, lots of smoke in this area, so work to do there as well. So it's a big property. We're obviously focused on this core area, 3 by 5 kilometers. Anything we find here in the Clear Creek Intrusive Complex is going to be part of a little mining district, right? Everything's going to feed into the central area. But then later on, we can start stepping out and checking out the potential of the entire property because, yeah, there's a lot of gold in a lot of different spots around here.
Yeah, it sounds like you do have your hands full this year, at least with that 30,000 meter drill program, growing that resource. I know you want to end this with a quick resource slide. So take us through the overall resource, where it stands right now to get everybody up to speed.
Yeah, we're really pleased. We put this out in January 21st. So it was based on, we had an additional initial resource at the Blackjack of 900,000 ounces of inferred resources at a grade of 0.83 grams per ton. Done 2 more years of drilling. That drilling was very encouraging as people recognized. So we updated the resource this January, and we have two categories: indicated and inferred. So indicated is just a higher confidence. The drill spacing is a little tighter. We've upped the gold cutoff to 0.3 grams per ton. It was formerly 0.25. So in the Blackjack, we've got just short of 40 million tons at a grade of 1.01 grams per ton. Indicated resource, pit constrained indicated resource. So that's 1.291 million ounces of gold. Plus, you add that inferred resource. So that's a slightly lower confidence level. But again, that same gold cutoff, 34 million tons at a grade of 0.94 grams. So an additional million ounces of resource there. So the Blackjack has grown very substantially, and not only in size, but that grade, which is really important. And that's why Blackjack has been and will be our focus, but we see the potential for these higher grades on other deposits in the area. Eiger, we haven't got back to that because Blackjack was the gift that kept giving. So this resource was put out in January of 2021 or 2023, I'm sorry. Gold cutoff grade 0.25 grams per ton, and inferred resource of 27 million tons at a grade of 0.5 grams per ton, so 440,000 ounces combined. So the endowment of gold at the Clear Creek property, the RC Gold property, has risen substantially. You can see if you add up all those numbers. So yeah, we're focused on continuing to expand these numbers here that you're looking at the screen, but also following up on those discoveries that we've made already. But also then further in the background are these other areas that are really prospective. So yeah, we've got a big year ahead of us, but we've got this area's got a lot of life left in it, and it's going to take a few years to fully understand it. But this year is a huge jump forward to be drilling, 30,000 meters, which is the more than we've drilled historically ever on this property. It's gonna really advance it to a pretty exciting stage.
All right, Mike, thank you for walking us through it. One more question before I get you out of here. Time frame in terms of completing the drilling and your best guess at when we could start to see some initial results.
Yeah, well, we're doing the winter drilling, so we're starting that right now. So the nice thing about winter drilling is the labs are very slow in the Yukon right now, so we'll get a very quick turnaround. I believe if you look back to our press releases last year, you would see drilling that we did in February. We were getting numbers back by March, early April. So that's when we should see results from the drilling coming out. We'll have to take a break for spring melt, and that's usually the end of March, early April, but we'll be back in early to mid-May. The nice thing about doing winter drill program is you clear the roads of snow that allows them to melt and clear off earlier. So it sets us up for an earlier start to the summer drill program. Summer drill program, as I mentioned, will be early to mid-May. Camp will be all ready to go. It'll just be turning the key and getting everything started. So again, when we get going there, that's a little earlier than most years. So again, I bet you we see some drill results coming out in mid to late June. So, and then we'll have a very steady news flow.
All right. Again, Mike Burke, Director and Vice President of Corporate Development at Sitka Gold. Mike, really appreciate you putting together this presentation for us, and please keep us up to date on the drill results when they start coming out.
I'm sure we'll be talking lots, Cor. Good having a chat with you again today.